Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Hager number 730S-N. This is a mill finish aluminum automatic door bottom. This is what it looks like. We're going to identify this end as the hinge end, the hinge side of the door. It'll be known because it has this steel rod sticking out of it. We're going to call that the plunger. The other end is going to be called the lock end, or the lock side of the door. We'll know it because it doesn't have that plunger. Okay. Automatic door bottoms are devices that, when installed to the bottom of the door, when the door is closed, automatically seals the bottom of the door. A lot of people say, how can that be? How does that work? Well, it is understandably perplexing, but it's really just simple once you know it. So, automatic door bottoms work by something actuating that drops the bottom of it down. Before we go on with that, though, there are different types of automatic door bottoms, and I want to address the types first. First and foremost, there is a link below this video to what's called the product brochure, which shows this 730 in relationship to a couple of other automatic door bottoms split between pages 1 and 2. This model is specifically called a mortised style automatic door bottom. It's intended to be mortised to the bottom of the door, where you would create a route or a mortise in the bottom of your door and insert it in, versus the type that's seen on the following page, which is their surface mounted model. Then the one even below that is another mortise type, the 742. That's for steel doors specifically. Then you've got another mortised version and then a heavier duty surface version below it. So the 730S is an automatic door bottom of a mortise type, where it's going to get mortised to the bottom of the door. Okay, and the different types: mortise, surface, the hollow metal type, or even a semi-mortise, where you could take a full surface or a surface type and mortise it only flush with the face of the door. They all work on the principle of this. When the door is closed, this being the hinge side, and forgive the fact that this is hanging long, that's typical, you'll trim that after installation. The plunger is sticking out of the edge of the door. When the door is closed, this comes in contact with the frame. This plunger has nowhere to go but in, and when it does, drum roll please, plunger pushes in and the bottom drops down. Okay, it's a bit hard to do it just with hand strength, but that's how it works. Now you can see that it comes down a little bit odd, a little bit uneven. Well, that's normal, because what happens is, in the real world, my thumb would act as a restrictor, meaning that it's going to hit the sill. So the sill will come down uneven, but as soon as that's restricted from going any further, when it hits the sill, the rest of it drops down. Here's really how it works. The plunger, the steel rod, is connected to a flat spring. That flat spring is contained within the housing here, actually this inner housing. And I don't think we can see much evidence of it. But that flat spring, when it's not compressed, is just flat. When the plunger is pushed in, it compresses the flat spring, making it into a belly. That bellying action forces this inner channel assembly, this one here that I can play with a little bit, because it is connected to the flat spring, forces it down, and that's the dropping action. As soon as the door begins to open, the flat spring tension on it is released and it snaps back up into its housing, because the flat spring is going back to its normal state. That's how they work. It's really that simple. If it's a surface mount or a semi-mortise mount, you need to obviously have it installed on the push side only of the door. Otherwise, if you install it on the pull side, the plunger would have nothing to communicate to. Okay, now there is really the business end of this, is the link to the instructions, and those are also here, installation instruction. You know what, before we do that, there's an image below this video showing everything important dimensionally about the item. Let's go over that now. You've got an overall width of the flange that's on the bottom of the door at 1 1/4 inches. That's correct. You have an overall height of 1 3/4 inches. That's correct as well. And you've got a channel width of 21/32, about 5/8, you know, roughly. Okay. Now, dimensionally, we verified that the drawing is correct. Now, back to the installation instructions. Those are, I suppose, daunting. There's 2 pages of the stuff, for goodness sakes. There doesn't really need to be that much. However, when you look at it further, the part that pertains only to the 730S is just the top half of the first page. So we're going to go over it now. I've installed these many times. They're fairly universal in how they go about being attached to the door, but let's go over it. Mortise door bottoms are non-handed. They can be used for left or right hand installations. That's obvious. You can just take this side and just turn it around if you wanted. They're not handed. Installation procedure. If necessary, cut the unit to match the width of the door. Okay. Do not cut the end with the adjustment screw, what we're calling the plunger. You do not cut the hinge side. You only cut this side. Now, maximum 2 inches, all you can cut off. This happens to be an unusual length at 44 inch. This client can only take it down to 42 inch. I am a fan of you ordering it the length that you need it. It's in the website already in a lot of different lengths. None of them will probably be exactly what you want. So, in the comment field, indicate the net length you want us to ship it out to. The material is being cut from raw goods anyway, so why not just cut it to the proper length? Maybe you can't get to the job site and measure all of them, or whatever the case might be. And in that event, realize that you've got a 2 inch margin. So there you go. But if you order it cut to length, with a comment specifying the comment in the field there, we'll cut it to the proper length for you, so you don't have to do that kind of work. If you've got a beveled door, keep in mind the dimension you take on either side of the door will be a little bit different. You might have to file a little bit, etc. Or you can just cut it yourself, whatever. Step 2, if unit is trimmed in the field, undercut the inner drop-down gasket bar from the opposite end of the adjustment screw. The gasket bar should be 1/8 inch less than the external housing. So what they're saying is that when you're going to cut this, what you really ought to do is cut it with it drop down, because it tends to, you can see that it's no longer flush when it comes down, and they want this to be cut 1/8 inch less because they know that it kicks out, the inner channel kicks out a little bit when it's used. Mortise the entire length of the bottom edge of the door. See figure 1. For the 730, 11/16 wide, 1 3/4 deep. So you're going to take your plunge router and you are going to mortise the entire bottom of the door, 11/16, by 1 3/4 deep. So you might put a caliper on this and decide that an 11/16 2-flute carbide bit is hard to get. You might have a 3/4, or you might have a 1/2 inch. Use your best judgment, but the instructions call for 11/16. How I go about installing these, mortising these, I would have a plunge router, and then the base. Well, flip it on its end. I would take like a 12-inch 2x2 or 3x3 aluminum angle, bolt it to the bottom of my base, so that when I drop the entire unit on the face of the door, that aluminum angle gave me the fence by which I would lay on the face of the door. And you're going to want to take proper cautions to sand and make sure that when you drag it across the door, it doesn't scratch your door. But it'll give me the proper center line. And then all I'd have to do is get it down on the door stable, start my plunge router in 3/16 of an inch, route the entire way down, come back, put my plunge router in a bit deeper, do the process till I was 1 3/4 deep. If you don't have the benefit of CNC machinery, router and a fixture is how you go about doing it. If you want to discuss that in detail, feel free to reach out to me. Position the unit, step 4, position the unit into the mortise. The end having the adjusting screw should be flush with the hinge edge of the door. Mark and drill the pilot holes, install the mounting screws. What they're talking about is all these screws, the holes in the bottom flange. And you attach it with the screws provided. Turn the adjusting screw so that the gasket bar drops to provide a complete seal when the door is closed. To reduce the amount of drop, turn the screw clockwise. Yes. To increase the amount of drop, turn it counterclockwise. The further out this extends from the edge of the door, the more this is going to want to drop down. Now, a special note. Do not extend the adjustment screw more than what is required for the gasket to come in just in contact with the top of the door or your sill or your threshold. This can result in excessive wear or possible damage. Maximum drop 3/4 inch. What they're saying is, when you install this, turn it clockwise so that it's barely sticking out. Turn it all the way in. Let it stick out a little bit. Close the door, test the drop. Then go out further. Close the door, test the drop. You want this to touch the seal. You don't want it to be bottomed out against it, because when you start to open the door, the seal is still being pushed down by the flat spring, causing you to unintentionally drag the inner part of the door bottom against the floor, most likely damaging it. So be very conservative. A little bit out, test it. A little bit further, test it. Only so that it seals, not so that it's bottomed out. You will damage it. When the screw is properly adjusted, position the end cap with the hex hole over the hinge edge. So there's two end caps, just pieces of cut aluminum. That's obviously the side for the hinge with the plunger sticking out. And really all they are dress caps, just to dress off the work that you've done with the router. Okay? The blank one is for the other side. Attach the remaining end cap on the opposite side. For wood frames, install this little doodad, a protective strike plate with one of the screws provided on the frame, meaning over years this plunger is going to come in contact with a wood frame. If it is wood frame, it will create a divot. When you attach this little plate on the frame, it'll come in contact with this, allowing your frame not to be damaged. And the instructions are included with the unit, which is the same as the link that we've got here. I've exhausted all of the parts that we have here. And now to say, I believe that automatic door bottoms are a very elegant solution. They are an elegant solution because they're concealed and very effective. They do not wear against a floor, a high gloss wood floor or carpeting. They do not cause any sort of premature fatigue to weather stripping, because all this neoprene, by the way, that's what the N stands for, is just sealing against the floor. It's never being dragged. So all you're really asking it to do is just rest on top of it. And that's what makes it elegant and very long lasting. The only complaint with door bottoms, 1 out of 10,000, is someone's going to say they hear the clanking when it comes back up. It is true, you can hear it, there's no doubt. However, the numbers kind of speak for themselves. One in 20 plus years mentioned it and found it almost unacceptable. I understand that. But the fact of the matter is that small disadvantage is completely outweighed by its effectiveness and its ability to be a long-term solution, even though you'll sacrifice a little bit of something else. There are models that can be made to help deaden that sound. You might also even get yourself, a small strip of something to place in there. Install it and then go from there. If you have any questions on the Hager number 730S-N automatic door bottom, it's also available in silicone as well. That's a -S. Please feel free to reach out to us. Hager is a full-line manufacturer of many things weather stripping related, but not only weather stripping, trim and auxiliary like push plates and kick plates and door stops, hinges, exit devices, door closers. But it's their namesake, Hager Hinge. They're a full-line comprehensive manufacturer of all things hinge related, both architectural and commercial. If you have any questions on the Hager number 730S-N automatic door bottom, full mortise type, or any other Hager product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.